Cunn's Tea, this is Sorcha, butting in at the top of the episode with a very quick announcement. We have some upcoming live shows. We are going to be at a new venue called Gaia in Cork on the 23rd of July, and we're going to be back in Whelan's on the 20th of August. If you would like to come to either of those shows, you can find details and ticket links on our website, candlelittales.ie. And if you are listening to this after the 20th of August, you can find details of whatever show we are doing next at candlelittales.ie. Hope to see you there. Cunn's Tea, how are you? Welcome back to the Candlelit Tales podcast, where we are talking about our Waterways series and kind of wrapping it up. I'm sitting here with my brother Aron.
And I'm sitting here with my sister Sorcha. And we are Candlelit Tales podcast where we tell stories. We talk about them afterwards. Always Irish mythology. And we have loads of videos and podcasts backdated. So we're going to wrap up our season of Waterways. We have a few stories to talk about today. We have the River Lee and how it's got its name. My own lovely Lee. The River Devlin or Delvin. I'm not sure. Because I spelled it both wrong.
Oh my
ways.
God, pick one. You have to pick one.
I just slightly dyslexic with that one, so I'm just not sure.
Yeah, just with that one?
Yes, just that only
Just
one
only
word.
that one?
Only one word.
Never happens otherwise.
And then we're going to be talking about the amazing crane bag. Manannán MacLear's.
Yes,
crane bag.
Manannán MacLear's crane bag, which was the story that I recorded just before this.
And we'll be drawing to a close this series, which we've just basically linked Waterways, mythical places that have links to water, names, rivers, lakes, and watery.
Yeah,
type
interesting
styles.
stories that we could find, because like there's listen, this is not an exhaustive series. We will probably come back to it as we've come back to mythic places already. We kind of started with our like big iconic ones like Blarney Castle and the Giant's Causeway. I think we did that one, didn't we?
I don't think we did.
I think we did. I think I did it and you didn't.
Right.
Because I think you did one. Anyway,
As we
needed
realised,
to look back over the series of episodes that we have released because we record them and then we immediately forget.
Shh, no, we don't.
Yes, we do. Mister, let me just listen back to this story because I forget what I said.
Literally forgot everything about it. It's like, oh, well, you guys must know so many stories. I'm like, we do.
Yeah,
when
we do,
we're
but
telling them.
We make space. We make new space frequently by deleting the old stuff. Clear hard drive.
Yeah. It's important to empty the trash, as I've been told.
Yeah.
You gotta empty that trash, you know.
Just empty
Otherwise
yourself, Aaron.
Clogs up, you know. You start running slow. Too many stories clogging up, and you're just like, yeah. So you gotta get them out.
Anyway,
Not actually a computer. Anyway.
if either of us is the secret android, we're the glitchiest fucking androids.
Can't compute.
Just
Can't compute.
breaking down
Okay.
all the time.
So which one do you want to start with?
We should probably go in order, should we?
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's great.
I mean, that's a good idea.
Which one came?
I think it was the River Devlin or Delvin.
Damn it. I wanted you to say it. So you pick one. You saw through my plan.
I leant out of the light. Sorry. I'm unaccustomed as I am to being on camera.
Also spoke the audio.
I was gonna look it up. See,
yeah.
this is what I do when I'm unsure of something is I look it up.
Yeah,
It's the River Delvin.
Delvin.
It's definitely the River Delvin.
It's kind of a messed up story. It's just basically a guy who wants to go for a holiday in Norway, meets a lot of kind of mental ones, and they all demand to sleep with him on a bronze bed, which I don't think would be very comfortable, especially on a boat. And then, you know, finds out they're pregnant and then runs away, comes back, and they're very angry that he didn't stay around. Very angry. Didn't like the fact that he didn't stay around and be like, I don't know. They take it against him anyway. We don't quite get their point of view is all I'm trying to say. It's kind of my sympathy.
So you really delved deep into that one. From a feminine point of view, you really thought it through. Worked with the source material.
Yeah, worked with
Extra,
it.
you know, just like
Extracted the
spent
meaning.
some time thinking about different perspectives. Came at it from different
I
angles.
ran it by you, and you were like, "That is mad." It was mad. It wasn't quite a lot of
Me,
meat. On
famously
the bone.
maternal and interested in relationships. Great fucking baseline there, man.
I mean, I had to run it by somebody, and you're the person.
I'm
that does this
here.
with me, You're here. Okay, so it was a strange one.
It was a strange one.
I mean, there's definitely a kind of a maturation avoidance in him running off to Norway, spending 7 years there, and then coming back and avoiding the 9 women. who really have it out for him. And I'm hoping that as I talk about it, some deeper meaning will come into our minds because, again, I'm kind of lost on it. He comes back.
I mean, it's a pretty brutal story. Isn't there like child death in that story?
They basically come back and he tries to come back at a different route so that
To avoid them.
To avoid being seen, even though it was like years in the past. And I don't know.
I mean, people tend to remember when they have a baby with you.
Right.
They tend to remember you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But he gets back, and then the woman of the she who is the mother. She throws the child off of the boat and into the.
It's a bit Medea then in the end, like the kind of killing of the child to get back at the father sort of idea, is it?
Yeah, I guess that's essentially it. It's like you left, and now you can't have this child, and now this is what happens when you.
This is what happens when you shirk your responsibilities.
The name of the river is named after the child, so like, it's a gruesome one with very little context of who Ruaidh is, other than the son of a king. You don't really know much about that lineage at all, or I couldn't find a lot much. Again, this is from Richard Marsh's collection of Meath folk tales. So like the county is steeped in mythology and everything has links to so much around it. But then when you come down to this bare bones of a story, there's not a lot of hang on to it.
Which happens a lot with kind of different stories that we come across. They're often a little bit thin on characterization and detail. And sometimes you can figure it out and sometimes you can find it. But, you know, sometimes you're just like, well, that was wild. I mean, I don't get it.
It's a very, like, it is an extremely human, like, a story of, you know, fathering a child and either, you know, stepping up to the plate or running away and not doing that at all. And so I think that it's almost moralistic in that, like, if you go off and shirk your responsibilities here,
yes,
you know, there's a
consequence to running away and not taking responsibility.
Yeah,
and I think there's also like the Tuatha Dé Danann women are often kind of like outsized in their emotions and their reactions. So it's that thing of like 9 women want you to father their children and then they're going to kill your kids in front of you when you don't step up. Like it's just kind of exaggerated and emphasized. And what am I trying to say? It's big. It's always bigger than
bigger
real.
Than human.
So there's something bigger than human, I think, in that whole thing of like, hey, the 9 of us want to be your like sister wives. You know, you don't get a choice.
What the brass bed means.
I'm sure it has some significance and I don't know what it is.
No, I definitely don't.
I mean,
but yeah, there's a bit complex going on there. And it's an interesting one, I guess.
So it was weird.
It was weird.
Sometimes they're just weird.
But that's how the River Delvin got its name. So yay.
Devlin or Delvin?
I just said it really fast. I hope you didn't notice. I'm just trying to say it really quick.
Yeah. So you did know a little bit more about the next one, which was the River Lee.
Thanks.
In fairness,
really
a little bit more.
Bit.
The banks of my own lovely.
I mean, I did have a couple of podcasts to catch up on because.
We let Aaron go next because, you know,
I had a few catch up.
He left for the winter, and I did all the podcasts.
I mean, some of the podcasts I did, some of the podcasts.
Yeah.
So yes, the River Lee. That was again, I suppose, one that I was, you know, a story that you have in your head for a while, and you can't quite get it out. I've been trying to do this one. I think since I got back from it, I was like, oh, next week I'm going to have this.
Yeah, you had it. You were going to have it next week for about 2 months.
Yeah, for about 2 months, because there was a small bit of a section that you sent me about Finbar fighting.
All I could find was a tiny little bit in one of the UCD folklore collection copies, which are like it's folklore as told by children in primary school. Mm-hmm. So it's a massive kind of folklore collection, but it's a lot of the stories are really, really scrappy because they're like, kids, go home and ask your granny about the stories from the area. So the kid will write down. So this kid wrote down that there was a monster and a priest drove it out. Like a holy man drove it away and it made the river with its passage.
Right.
And that was kind of it. So I was like, that seems like it would be cool.
Yeah, and
Oh,
I was kind of like, okay, I don't want to, especially being from Cork and having,
we
grown
we
up
couldn't,
next to
we
River
couldn't
Lee.
do a scrappy job on
You're kind of
Cork.
going, okay, we got to absolutely nail this one. So I went to as close to the source of an oral translation or way of finding it as I could. One of my friends, Kieran McNeely, he's a Gaeilgeoir, a teacher in primary schools, and he's a primary school friend of mine, but he went out and he messaged a few people. I went actually kayaking near Gugambara at the lake there with him a couple of years ago, and we were talking about the mouth of it, where exactly it is, and hiked up there since. And it's a beautiful place. It's stunning, and there's quite a lot of people who walk up to the source of the River Lee. It's out, you drive past Macroom, there's loads of beautiful native forest, and there's a lot of beautiful just scenes, and you can really see the rock and the landscape all around the lake there, where the river is kind of just really small at the start. And he found out there's stories that are told in the primary schools around the location there that are about St. Finbar setting up his first site on Gugambara, and that.
Yeah, it was
Small
kind of
little lake,
the Finbar thing was what sort of unlocked it then, and
yeah,
Finbar's rock is Gugambara, and like
basically, yeah.
the island where he set his church, and he was kind of
There's a
he's
really,
kind of the patron saint of Cork a bit,
yeah,
isn't
he is, and like he's supposed to have founded the site, and again the river emerged from it, and he also St. Finbar's Cathedral. Then
he?
he
Yeah.
went down and left and founded the cathedral at the mouth of the River Lee, and then that's what where Cork was built around it. So Cork wasn't actually a marsh before Finbar was there, which is
Yeah,
as
it
the
was
story
it was
goes.
still probably the marsh, but it was well, maybe, yeah. Although if he
No,
started the river, then it wasn't
exactly,
a
yeah,
marsh.
because
So he turned it in. He
so.
turned it from dry land into Cork.
Yeah. So, or Kirkig,
Corkig.
and came down, and it was after the river that people began to put houses on stilts to be closer to the cathedral. Again, there was a good few versions online that I found, and the best one was actually a voiceover that Kieran got for me from a woman with her second name as Gugon. So
Oh, cool.
presume
So straight from the Gugon's mouth.
straight from the Gugon's mouth. Catherine Gugon, I believe was the name. So that was mad.
Excellent. Well, thank you to Kieran and Catherine for sending us the story.
Yeah, no, and it was, but again, it like you kind of have these pieces and these fragments. That's what's so fascinating about Irish mythology. You've this bit over here. A kid wrote it down that his granny told him. Then there's Saint Finbar, and he as a character is really interesting to look at because there was potential kind of what is it? What's the word I'm going to? Madness going on. Group occult. What I'm looking for.
Oh, you're looking for the cult word.
The cult word.
Well, a lot of those
there was
saints and
culty stuff.
scholars were just fucking warlords with a different script. You know
Right.
what I mean? Like that whole, all these round tower builders and the scribes and the monks, and we have this kind of like romantic image of them as being very ascetic, holy men. I'm sure some of them were, but some of them were like, hey, I'm a charismatic leader with a new fun message for everybody.
Well, so again, one of the pieces I found was talking about how at the site, and there's a kind of a chapel there, or kind of a small, what looked like the old monastery area. It's a small island on the lake now, around Gugambara, and you've this, again, the name Gugambara, is it from Fionn, or is it from Finbar, fair-haired Barra was his name, and then Gugambara, the rock of Barra, again, just how the name kind of
It seems like it's
transformed
associated, but hard to
without-
know how.
definitively. So he got there anyway, and there was some archaeological kind of evidence that she'd have gone down there for a while, for a long time, even possibly before Christianity. So it was definitely a site, and it was probably a site of worship. And it makes sense. It's stunning. People would definitely come from all over to go there. It's a little island that you can walk on to, it's stunning. And so, and there's a rock, there's a standing stone, limestone rock there, and again, is that the rock, or was that the rock brought, or was the rock already there before?
Did Finbar bring it, or did somebody else bring it?
And then did he claim it to be kind of, so So the whole story kind of goes that he was there setting it all up, and then this serpent raised his head from the depths below, and there was a great poem from James Harper that also was on an article, a brilliant retelling of the kind of what the significance is of that kind of creature lurking in the depths, and Finbar trying to kind of, I don't know, manage that good side and bad side, and then
it's
on either side of the river too. It's kind of interesting.
It's a projection. It's a poem about projection, like
pretty much.
I'm not the bad one. The serpent is the bad one. That was great. But it's linked in all the show notes of that episode anyway.
Yeah. So as fragmented as that sounds, there's loads of show notes. If you want to have a look at it, you can source back. It was a fun recreation of a story to try and put the beginning, middle, end to it, and so that was the River Lee. We hope we did it justice. Want to tell us about the crane bag?
No, I don't.
No? Okay.
Fuck it.
We're wrapping up the whole season.
We're wrapping up
last story.
We're wrapping up the whole season. We kind of had the crane bag as like the one that we were going to do at the end was always the plan.
Yeah.
Was like because it's a story about Manannán Mac Lir, because Manannán is the king of the ocean, and if you're talking about waterways in Ireland, the most important waterway in any island is the ocean. Any country that borders it, because it's trade, it's resources, it's communication with the outside world, it's fishing, it's industry. There's so much, like historically and culturally, that any island nation is so interlinked with the sea. And it's also, it's got a particular place in mythology and story. And I mention it in the story as well, like that old tradition of Irish fishermen to not learn how to swim.
Yeah.
Because the sea takes its due. Like that was the mindset. It was like, if you fall in.
Sure.
And I've heard some will say that if people fell off a fishing boat, the others on the fishing boat wouldn't pull them back.
It's mad. It's mental.
For that same reason. That like the sea gives you your living and takes its own. So all those communities who lived on the islands in the West did not swim in the sea. And we may have talked about this before because it's a wild idea, but it's I think it really kind of speaks to the attitude towards the sea as well. Like we see it these days as a place for like recreation as well.
Yeah, totally.
And I think that's kind of, it's interesting that was not how people viewed it. It was way more sacred and dangerous than that. So yeah, I wanted to kind of talk about Manannán because I think Manannán is a really interesting character in Irish myth. He's one of the more interactive gods. He's one of the gods who like hangs out with people more and like spends more time in Ireland and like turns up in stories. He's a great man to just turn up and do a little speech and fuck off again. Or like there's the Cormac McCart story where he tricks him into the other world to like teach him lessons. And sometimes he's just tricking people.
Yeah, he's
sometimes
a character.
He's just kind of having a laugh. So I kind of wanted to get that idea of the duality of the ocean because, the bounty of the ocean and the cruelty of it. And also Manannán as someone who is incredibly wise and incredibly powerful, but can also be just like completely careless and do things on a total whim.
Speaking of whims, I think like I got a very funny phone call off you this morning when you were trying to work this story out of your head. Because again, we had posted this as like, oh yeah, we'll get to that, and then
we decided to get to that, and then we had a very short window to get a recording time in today, so I was a little bit
working it on your head.
Turned up without having it worked out, which I try not to do when we have recording time booked. But anyway.
So, but what I mean is like because the beats of the story, we know the kind of, but.
I know two. See, this is the problem. There's two different versions of it. Because there was a version of it that I had read. The first version I'd read of it was him killing the crane Aoife by Loch Corrib, and then realizing that she was, the beloved of this poet, whose name is Ilbrak.
Yeah.
Or you changed pages for no goddamn reason. You could have used the rest of that page. It would have been fine.
It would have been
It's
fine.
a new page.
It didn't.
For no reason. My journal. Aaron never brings his own book with him. Anyway, it doesn't annoy me at all. It's a really big deal. So there was one story that I had the first time I read the story.
That's confusing when you have two different versions and you're like, which one do you pick?
So the first version was he doesn't know Ilbrak and he doesn't know what's happened to Aoife. And he shoots this crane, and that's it. And then the second version of the story, he is, he's the father of Ilbrak. And Aoife lives in his land for 200 years and dies of old age, and he's devastated when she dies. And that's kind of, they seem contradictory, but we found a way of putting them together.
Yeah, sliding them together. Again, kind of... an interesting way of having to deal with a story is like choose which elements you want to put together and choose which ones you need to leave out because you can't tell both. And also you need to make a creative decision on it. And your ideal by going into that was having, the two fundamental oppositions of the story.
Yeah.
Having something that is all giving, all bountiful and also all taking and devastating and ruining as the sea.
And personifying that in the characters of the two women who are in love with the same guy.
Yeah.
Because I think that's always a good way to conceive of a story when you have those fragmentary bits. And I think the bit that you kind of came in with then was the kind of fickleness and carelessness of Manannán and how you have these like great characters. And it's so kind of characteristic as well of the Tuatha Dé Danann and of Irish myth, where you will have these incredibly powerful people and then they will just do something fucking careless. Really stupid.
That's why when you were saying, maybe I won't have him kill him, I was like, it's the most human thing in the story is that he ends up killing the magic crane. you know? Like, he's such a dumbass.
The crane bag is such a kind of a potent idea. It was the title actually of a magazine, a literary magazine in Ireland, although they had a different version of the origin of it, which Imelda McCarthy told me. And in that version of it, Lear, as in Lear of the Children of Lear, it's what he does to his first wife's body.
Oh, God.
Which is real fucking dark and also, I think, wrong. Like, having researched it from my research on it, that's not the origin of the crane bag.
Right.
Although it's a much, like, that magazine, part of the mission of that magazine was kind of a reclaiming of women's voices. So obviously they were taking that as a metaphor for, like, the silencing and the violence against women. But, I remember hearing that and I was like, I don't think, that's not, Manannán MacLear and Lear are not the same person. And Manannán is not like that from what I've read of him. No, there is a story about Manannán that I was considering telling, which is the story of Inver Glas, which is up in the north in Derry, where he falls in love with a mortal princess and he has his druid cast a sleep spell on her and kidnap her. And the druid leaves her on the beach while going to get a boat.
Oh,
and she drowns.
Tides, dude.
Well, it's a big wave. There's a sandbank, and he left her on the other side of the sandbank, and a big wave came up over the sandbank and drowned her. And Manannán kills his druid. I didn't want to.
You also sent him off to kidnap her, dude. So you're not
like,
exactly innocent in this one.
This is the thing. You roofie the girl.
Yeah.
That was under your orders. That was fucking dodgy.
Ooh.
No, she was also like. She was so beautiful and she was supposed to marry a great king that her parents wouldn't let her see anyone. So she was not in a good situation.
No.
But so that was kind of a story that I decided not to tell as part of this series because it felt like a bit of a fucking downer. But I also think it's kind of like that careless aspect of the Manannán character comes through a little bit in that one as well. And then there's supposed to be a grave of one of the Tuatha Dé Danann that later got conflated with Manannán. So in folklore, that's Manannán's grave. And when the sea is angry, it's because Manannán's spirit is walking. Nice. Which is kind of cool. There are certain strands in Ireland that are very, you can really sense the power of the sea even on a calm day.
Gorgeous.
So yeah, we wanted to end the waterways with the waterway that is the ocean.
Well, it's
And
also
then our next,
just to finish up on the crane bag as well, because it's such. I know Mangan McGann has the Almanac of Ireland, and he actually has a whole episode on the crane bag as well, which is fantastic to listen to. In terms of the thing, and Fionn McCool gets the crane bag, and anything you reach in, like you can store. It's kind of this magic bag.
yeah, it becomes a bag of holding.
And whatever you put, you need, you draw out of it, isn't it?
Yeah, that's that's in the story too. Yeah.
Anyway, cool. We will, wrap up now. Thank you very much for listening. Waterways series coming to a close.
And
next up, we'll have random stories that we didn't get around to. We're going to have a few stories and a few interviews that we've been putting aside from really interesting people. We've got an interview with her father, Tony Hegarty, psychologist and psychotherapist.
We've a few lined up, and we said we weren't going to say who the interviews were all with because we haven't lined them all up yet.
Yeah.
So
loads, very interesting people, lots of mythology, lots of stuff coming for your eardrums, and
you.